about trunk space and the baggage of 6 people going for a week's stay, he brought along a rope in order to secure the trunk lid. It turned out to be a daunting task, arranging and rearranging pieces of luggage, trying to utilize every square inch of space. Finally, we all agreed the best possible fit had been made, and Charlie, as an extra precaution, ran the rope through the handle of one of the suitcases before he made fast the trunk lid. As we were speeding along, chatting, and enjoying our being together, and anticipating the great flight and a week in San Francisco, a car pulled alongside us. A woman in the back seat, waving frantically, pointed toward the back. Charlie immediately pulled over onto the shoulder of the road and stopped, and all 6 of us piled out to see what it was about. We walked to the back of the car, and there at the end of a rope was a suitcase. We'd been towing it for who knows how long down the New Jersey Turnpike. It was John Smith's suitcase. That was his real name, John Smith. And he was just as unpretentious as his name. He liked to say, and my wife's name is Mary. John told us that when he was asked his name at state police checkpoints, they suspected him of giving him an alias. And more than once he had to prove he was indeed John Smith. At the back of the car, we all stared at the once handsome, genuine, all-leather suitcase, and his wife, Mary, had just given it to him for Christmas just 3 months before. And there it lay on the concrete shoulder of the road with a gaping hole abraded in it, and John's pajamas were quite visible through the hole. We all sympathized with John over the damage to his suitcase, but as all we could do to hold in the laughter, we pictured the suitcase being dragged down the turnpike at that terrific speed, and what it must have looked like to the lady who motioned us to pull over. Well, Charlie and John put the suitcase back in the trunk, and this time successfully, and we made it to the airport without dragging any more suitcases. The Baltimore International Airport terminal inside was one enormous, attractive, high-ceiling room. The check-in counters for the various airlines were side by side at the far end of the room and opposite the entrance. We located the check-in counter for our flight and got in line. I had brought along a box of chocolate-covered cherries to have on the flight. But upon seeing the check-in line was long, I decided to go ahead and open them. This box of chocolate-covered cherries in the late 1960s contained 30 cherries.
Wow.
10 there.
Oh.
10 there. 22 in the others.
Wow.
Inflation.
Yeah.
There were 2 layers, 15 cherries to the layer. Not only that, the cherry was surrounded with a generous supply of thick syrup. The CCCs were separated by chocolate-colored cardstock. Vacuum-formed plastic packaging for CCCs had not arrived. As soon as I got them open, I turned to John, standing behind me, and as though this would be some kind of consolation for his misfortune, I said, "Poor John, have a chocolate-covered cherry." He readily reached for a CCC and pushed very hard to get his big fingers between the cardstock and around the CCC, and I was not prepared for the force he applied to get the piece out. The box turned completely over in my hand, spilling all 30 pieces onto the clean and beautifully polished grayish-white marble floor. When they hit the floor, they bounced and rolled in every direction. A minefield of chocolate-covered cherries had just been created, and we were helpless to do anything about it. effortlessly dressed man, briefcase under arm, came rushing in with eyes searching for his schedule. His shiny black shoe landed squarely on the CCC, smashing it. He stopped, he looked down, and took a step backwards. He scowled when he saw the sole of his shoe and looked around quickly as though searching for the cause of his adversity. He forcefully wiped his shoe on the polished marble floor with disgust. And in the meantime, he spotted all the other CCCs littering the floor. And when he moved forward again, he deliberately, carefully picked his way through and around them. Another man stepped on one with such force, the inside goo shot out like a bullet, hitting the leg of a woman passing by. She looked down to see what hit her. The cherry with the thick syrup was running down her stocking. She glared at the guy who stepped on the CCC, and then at me with the telltale box still in hand. I had no place to hide it, and I didn't want to throw it on the floor. And her body language and expression on her face told us she was thoroughly annoyed. She frantically searched her purse for something to wipe off the gooey stuff. Now, excuse me just a second. That's probably.
Call from New Horizon Town.
Just a second. Hello? Can you hear? Thank you too, honey. Listen, I'm in the middle of something. Call me. Good, okay. Fine, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see, where was I? She frantically searched her purse for something to wipe off the gooey stuff. Now a steady stream of travelers was coming in the door behind us and passing us on both sides. Most, to their undoing, were looking up at the arrival departure schedules and gates or for directions to the check-in counters and did not see what was underfoot. Soon all around us, the CCCs were being stepped on. Sticky patches of thick syrup and broken pieces of chocolate began to form and multiply. John and I watched as some wiped their shoes on the attractive marble floor. Others tiptoed their way forward, trying to dodge the patches of goo, and others hopscotched their way from one clear spot to another. Those who avoided stepping on a CCC directly still wound up stepping in the sticky patches where the shoes had been wiped. Some unknowingly kicked the CCCs and sent them rolling to be stepped on later. To our amazement, some so focused on moving ahead and getting checked in seemed oblivious to the mess and just walked through and tracked it further. Going on a trip or trying to make a scheduled flight was no time to have to deal with such a mess or to arrive with goo on your shoes. John and I noticed that these would-be passengers were not taking too kindly to this debacle. They looked around with scowls and glares in search of the who or what was behind such mischief. A line began to form next to our line, and I noticed an additional frustration. It was hard to find a clean place to put a suitcase down. Not only that, some had pieces of chocolate stuck to the sides of their shoes. As they lined up next to us, I saw them staring at the big hole in John's suitcase. They looked at the hole, then at John, and then back at the hole. What man in his right mind would be traveling with such a huge hole in his suitcase? His pajamas showing, no less. Surely the hole was not in it when he packed it, and if not, how in the world did it get there? At this point, I wondered if any of these travelers looking at the improbable hole in John's suitcase, and standing amid the sticky remains of chocolate-covered cherries, were beginning to feel this Baltimore International Airport was a bit unsettling and hoped it didn't portend further trouble. As I pondered, we moved forward until I was at the counter and checked in. John was next. The agent began his usual routine of questions, but there's nothing usual about John's answers. "Can I help you, sir?" the agent asked. "I doubt it," said John as he reached for his ticket inside his suit coat pocket. "Check your bag, sir," the agent continued. "What's left of it," said John as he put the damaged suitcase on the scales. "Would you like insurance on this bag, sir?" "Too late for that," said John. When we finally boarded our plane and took off, I thought about the incredible mess we left behind. I could see the travelers, irate, disgruntled, still trying to pick their way through the gooey stuff, wiping their shoes on the floor or trying to find a clean spot to put a suitcase down. Meanwhile, John and I, the cause of it all, were soaring above and away with it, with impunity. I could only imagine what the cleanup crew said. They came on duty and were confronted with a sticky layer of crushed chocolate-covered cherries all over that once beautifully polished marble floor. Well, that was the beginning of my first trip across the United States of America. And after these initial mishaps, everything went well, and we had a wonderful time. Don't ask me what's discussed at the week-long conference in San Francisco. I don't remember.
Okay, now